kids started to get older, we started to get concerned about the fact that they were going to have to go to college and a number of things like that. We had 6 children. We had 5 girls, and the boy was the youngest. The oldest 2 girls were in junior college. The next one was a junior in high school, and then there was a sophomore, and etc. So and he had gotten sick of driving in and out. It was an hour in every day, an hour out every day. So I suggested to him that maybe it would be better for all of us if we moved closer to the city. Well, both of us come from very rural backgrounds, and we decided that we wouldn't move into the city, but we'd move into one of the rural suburbs.
Just tell us a ghost story.
I will stop.
All right, sorry, Miss Gray.
We decided that we would move into one of the rural suburbs. In the suburb, my husband said something to me, and I said, well, I've been through Clarence, which is one of the farthest, most eastern of the of Buffalo suburbs, and it kind of was sort of rural itself. So I said, well, why don't you look in Clarence? Well, he spent about 6 months on his lunch hours trying to find us a place to rent in the city, and there was nothing that we really, really wanted. Or that we really felt we could afford. And about 6 or 7 months into his search, he calls home one day and he says, you will never believe what some real estate agent showed me. He says, I have found us a huge mansion to rent for $1,000 a month.
Dun, dun,
well, we
dun.
had 6 kids and cats and dogs and stuff, so we kind of had to have a big place. And I said, well, where'd you find it? And he said, in Clarence. And, well, I knew Clarence had places like that, but I said, oh, yeah, right. If somebody's going to rent this to us for $1,000 a month. He says, I am not kidding you. So he says, this weekend I'll get us all in the Suburban, and I'll bring us all in, and I'll show this to us. So we all got to the Suburban, and we started into the city, and we went into the Clarence, and we were going down this road called Thompson Road. And we come to this big iron gate, and then there was this alley of trees, and way in the background you saw what looks basically like a small English castle. And I'm looking at my husband going, yeah, right, what's the catch with this place? And he says, no, he says, I'm serious. He said the real estate agent was thrilled that we would rent this. And he says, geez, maybe someday we could buy it. And I'm going, yeah, right. He says, well, it's been up for sale for about 12 years. Some movie producer in Hollywood owns it, and he never comes here anymore, and he's tried to sell it for 12 years, and he can't sell it. I said, well, what's wrong with it? And he says, well, it's fairly old, and he said the heating system has to be redone in it. And the walls of the place were literally 4 foot thick. It was stone. It looked like a small English castle. And there were gardens in the back that looked like old English gardens, and a rose bed up front, etc., and a wishing well, and all this kind of different stuff. So, and there's 3 stories to this house. So when you look at the floor plan, that's the ground floor. There's a whole basement underneath that. And then above that was a big ballroom, literally a ballroom. So, and some servants' quarters. So he takes and shows us the house, and we're all kind of mesmerized. In the back there was a huge 12-car carriage house that had a big apartment over that somebody was living in. And I keep saying to my husband, this is really just too good to be true. There's something wrong with it. He says, well, he says the last person that looked at it to buy it was Jim Kelly, who was the quarterback for many years for the Buffalo Bills. And he says Jim Kelly was going to buy it, and he says then at the last minute he backed out, and they've not been able to get anybody to make an offer on this house. What the producer wants is he at least wants the rent for the house. So I said, okay. So we had to move a bunch of kids to Clarence High School and Clarence Middle School and Clarence Elementary School. And we rented out our other house, and we packed up the kids and the dog and the cat, and we moved in to this place on a weekend. So the first Monday, the kids went off to school, and Jim went off to work, and I started to unpack all this crazy stuff we had. And And it was truly magnificent inside. The living room was this big, giant cathedral ceiling, and it was all the stone walls. And the windows were literally leaded glass. It looked like you were literally in some kind of English castle. And the dining room, too. The dining room was so massive, it had its own hand-hewed table and dining room set from the original owner. And the original owner was a man who built this for his family in the 1920s. He was called the Asphalt King of Buffalo. He had made his millions on asphalt, and he had this house built in Clarence for his wife and his two sons. So the first thing I was trying to do was unpack a number of these things, and in the dining room I showed you where this big giant hand-hewed dining chest of drawers was to put things in. And they apparently never moved it out. That itself must have been worth a fortune, but I don't think they moved it out because it was probably so heavy they couldn't possibly move it out. And I was opening the drawers, and I was trying to put in my meager amount of linens and napkins and things. And I opened one drawer, and way in the back, I don't know how I saw it, the way in the back, stuck and wedged behind a drawer, was this old piece of paper. And I took it and I pulled it out. And what I pulled out is about a 4-page letter that probably was written sometime in the 1920s. And I opened it up, of course, out of curiosity. And what the letter was, is it was a love letter from this man to his wife.
Aww.
And apparently he was dying. He had some terminal illness and he was dying. And he writes this very beautiful letter to his wife, telling her how much he loved her, how great their life had been together, that he was sorry that he was going to have to leave her. But he says, as long as you are always in this house, I will be always here with you.
Dun dun dun.
Didn't think anything of it. Just, it was a very beautiful, very sad letter. Didn't really think it was something that was my business. If I'd known what it was to begin with, I never would have read it. And I packed it back up, and I put it back, way back, and I pushed it down so that nobody else would ever find it. I never said anything to my husband about it, never said anything to the kids about it, and never really thought about it. That night, the kids came home from school. They got home about 4:30 off the school bus. My husband still had about 30 minutes to cross the city, and he got home. And there was a lake, a small lake in the back, and it had a paddle boat. So the kids, this was spring, so all the kids went out and they were using the paddle boat on the lake. Hello.
I'm here.
Okay, Alex, you just need to go to the office and get something and you'll be right back, okay? All right.
You're gonna miss
So the kids went off to the lake and they were playing outside, and my husband, there was a spiral staircase, literally a spiral staircase from the floor, right, yes.
Do I have to go now, or can I wait a little bit?
Now you better go get it, whatever it is. Okay, I'll come back. So there was a spiral staircase that went down into the cellar. And in the cellar, there was a huge, under here, there was a huge room with a giant bar. Under the dining room was a trophy room. This man had been an African hunter, and he had hanging on the walls and these heads of antelope and lions and things like that that were stuffed. And the wall had been sealed over, but you could see where the tunnel was. There used to be a secret tunnel from the trophy room to the carriage house because it snowed so much in Buffalo, New York, that in the winter when he went out to get, and probably it was a Model A or a Model T, his car, he went through the carriage instead of walking around outside. Yeah, Leanne.
Sorry, can I go to the bathroom?
Give me your agenda.
Did you really live in his house?
Yes. We lived about 9 months in that house.
Shine the youth?
Do you still have the letter?
I told you, I took the letter, pushed it back down where nobody could ever get it, into the dresser.
Why? You should have get it.
Okay, now, so that night the kids were way out at the lake. I was still trying to load things, and my husband went down the spiral staircase, and he was in the trophy room, which is below the dining room. And he was down there maybe 10, 15 minutes, and he comes running upstairs. And he's a big man, and nothing really bothers him. And he's all white in the face, and I said to him,